A very good afternoon to one and all, and I extend a very warm welcome to all our parents and everyone who have joined us for this session. I am Mrs. Sangeeta Rishi Pathak, and I am working in Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing. I'm working there as a coordinator for all counselors working in all Symbiosis schools. So, again, welcome you all for this session on tuning into the Tiny Tots. And we are thankful that you all have joined us for this session today. And as we go ahead, as we begin with this session, we would like to begin by introducing our dignitaries. So, taking that ahead, I would first like to introduce Dr. Gargi Mitra Madam. So Dr. Gargi Mitra Madam is an educationist, like she's done a PhD in education and she was head of department of education at MIT World Peace University. She was an assistant professor in Azam College of Education and she was a visiting lecturer in Tehmi Grant Institute of Nursing. She was also a visiting lecturer in the Sadhu Aswani College of Nursing and in Armed Forces Medical College for MSc nursing students. She has 20 papers presented at various conferences and seminars at various levels, and she has 15 publications to her credit, and the list goes on and on. So it's indeed our delight, pleasure, and privilege to have you with us today, ma'am. And we also take this opportunity to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for giving us this opportunity to connect with our parents today. So thank you very much again. And having said that, I would request Dr. Gargi Mitra Madam to say a few words and address parents.
Thank you, Sangeeta. A very warm good afternoon to Teja Mahale, Head Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing, Sangeeta, and to all the young parents of our Symbiosis Tiny Tots who have joined us on the other side of this platform this afternoon today, though not physically, but virtually. And I'm waiting for the day when we can greet each other face to face in person. But till then, better be safe than sorry. A warm welcome again, once again, dear parents. Parents here, I mean, representing different pre-primary schools of symbiosis. That is our Symbi Stars at at Model Colony. We have the Pune Police Public School, KG section at Shivaji Nagar. We have the early years program under Symbiosis International School at Viman Nagar. And of course, our Symbiosis Kindergarten School at Nashik. Welcome to all of you, dear parents. I'm sure that most of you are aware by this time that this year Symbiosis has stepped into its 50th year. Yes, parents, we are celebrating our golden jubilee here. And it was way back in 1971 when our beloved founder and president, Dr. S.B. Majumdar sir, had laid the foundation stone of this mega institution. Parents, I would like to say that this requires a man of strong moral character and conviction, apart from, of course, the great depth and knowledge to build something like this. It's an empire. And yet, if you meet him in person, he's such a humble and a modest person. And this legacy that Sir built in 1971 has been taken ahead by and nurtured by Dr. Vidya Yerodekar, who is the principal director Symbiosis, and she has been instrumental in taking Symbiosis to a greater height that you see today. Parents, we do not parents, your children are in safe hands and you have made the right decision for their education. Symbiosis School Central Directorate, the body that I represent, is a centralized body that was established to ensure equity, quality, and consistency of practices across all the Symbiosis schools. And we realize this, that counseling today is not just a necessity. It is a part and parcel of our daily life. We all need counseling. And so We have appointed counselors across all our Symbiosis schools. We at Symbiosis, we believe not just in producing good academic results, but also in nurturing the innate potentials of our students. I mean, so that they go on to become a good global citizen, the ultimate motto of Symbiosis. Parents, today's session, as already has been mentioned by Sangeeta, is the third in the series of the webinar that we are hosting. The first one was Raising the Rising Stars, intended for the parents of students studying from standard 6 to 10th. The next one was Parenting the Primary in Pandemic Times, and it was catered to the students of parents of the students studying in standard 1st to standard 5th. And today we have the third in this series, that is for you all, the pre-primary parents, called Tuning into Our Tiny Tots. And this is being organized by Symbiosis School Central Directorate along with Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing. I'm very happy to share this, parents, that though slowly, in the last one decade, the concept of mental health has changed. And extremely glad to share this, that we have all recognized and we have all realized that emotional well-being is no longer just meant for adults, as some of us believed, or only for teenagers because of this age of stress and storm they are in. But irrespective of the age, gender, socioeconomic status, caste, creed, ethnicity, nationality, it is for all, including our tiny tots. See, our young children may not be able to express their disturbances in ways in which we adults may be familiar to, but they too may be emotionally disturbed. The National Education Policy 2020, which has recently come up, as you, I mean, I'm sure you all are aware of this, has also laid great emphasis on the foundational years of schooling and how we need to make these years much more stronger so that our children can grow up to have a well-rounded personality and, of course, a good global citizen. Parents, we need your help. We need your help so that we can make this a collaborative effort to see to it that our tiny tots are, I mean, they open up, and to ensure that we have a healthy and a positive relationship with them. Because this COVID has exposed our little ones to the weirdest of the social environment that even you and me as adults would never have imagined. And to guide us and to answer to all your queries, we have with us our expert, our in-house experts. I'm proud to say that, Dr. Girija Mahale, the one who knows the best and how to handle such a situation. I welcome Dr. Girija and I thank her sincerely for having accepted this request and to conduct the session for all our parents. Thank you so much, parents, for joining us, and over to you, Sangeeta.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And so now taking this ahead, I would now like to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Girija Mahale, ma'am. Dr. Girija Mahale is a consultant psychiatrist and she is also head of SKU, that is Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing. She has a very vast experience of working with youth and the adolescent population. She has worked with this population, like the youth and adolescents in Australia, where she has completed her fellowship also. So, very good afternoon to you, ma'am. And I'm sure that today parents will definitely benefit. Like they would like the tips that you will share today, the tips for parenting that will be shared, and I'm sure they will benefit from it. So, as we start this session, as the Gargi ma'am rightly said, this session has been collaboratively planned and organized by the Symbiosis School Central Directorate, that is SSCD, and Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing, that is Q. So, starting with this session, I'll be asking few questions to Girija ma'am. I'll be interviewing her kind of, and through her answers, we will get some tips and techniques in the parenting style that parents sometimes need at home. And also, like if any one of you, if parents, if you have any questions or any queries, or even if you want to share some comments, you can please do so. Please feel free to do so and write your questions in the comment section. And we will definitely address them towards the end of the session. So all your questions will be addressed. So I'm sure you will get answers to some of your queries also. So please feel free to put your questions there. So talking about this session on tiny tots, so tiny tots, that is the age between 2.5, 3 years to 5 years. is like this little tiny tots are they are known for the brimming energy and their curious minds, and which as parents maybe it keeps you on your toes all the time. And so raising them in this age group can be that way a lot of fun, because their budding social and emotional physical skills make them eager learners, and this is the stage when they get to learn more, acquire new skills, and in this process they have their unique set of needs also. But as wonderful as it may sound, but sometimes being parent of a preschooler, sometimes it might be challenges. It might feel challenging to match up with their never-ending energy levels. And to add on to all this we are going through pandemic situation also. So to find out whether how much this pandemic situation has really affected our young tiny tots emotionally, socially, physically. So let's find out that from Dr. Girija Mahale, as I said, who's heads Q and a consultant psychiatrist. So good afternoon, ma'am, once again.
Good
And
afternoon,
as
Sangeeta.
yeah. And as we begin this session, and as this is the first time since Q started, we are connecting with parents. So I would request you to introduce Q, our center, briefly so that parents know something about it.
Sure. But firstly, let me thank Dr. Gargi Mitra, Madam, for inviting us here today and for allowing us and giving us this wonderful opportunity. She has been very supportive towards us, and it's only because of her help and support and constant encouragement that SKU and the school counselors have been able and are constantly striving to do a wonderful job when it comes to school children. And thank you, Sangeeta, for the wonderful introduction as well. I welcome all the parents who have joined us this afternoon for this session on learning more about, how to deal with their kids and how to handle some of the challenging behaviors that they might be displaying during this, especially during these current lockdown times. But to answer your question, Sangeeta, to tell a little bit about the center. So Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing was an institute that was established in August 2018 by our founder, Sir Honorable Dr. S.B. Muzumdar, sir. And it was established in order to educationalize mental health as well as to destigmatize and demedicinalize mental health. Because as we all know, in India, mental health is something that is rarely talked about, or even if it is talked about, it is only referred to as for people who are crazy or people who are mad. And it's something, that there's a lot of stigma and barrier attached to it. So, given the growing concerns with regards to the emotional health of many of the students that were coming to Symbiosis institutes or schools, Sir saw that there was a need to do something on a not just having individual counselors at various campuses, but to have some solid structure in place in order to address these needs, which is why this institute was established. Now, this institute comprises of mental health professionals. So when it comes to schools, there are different school counselors that have been appointed at each school of Symbiosis. And this is their work is governed by the Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing. So whatever counseling work the counselors do is also supervised by me, supervised by Sangeeta herself. And we ensure that the counselors are also updating their professional knowledge. We come up with workshops, lectures, and sessions by which we can inculcate positive mental health among students, because these are the building years for students. And emotional literacy is one thing that we really want our children to learn, so that later on, along with developing the academic knowledge, they also have these emotional intelligence, which enables them to become successful individuals in later life. So that's the whole aim and focus of the center.
Definitely, ma'am. Thank you so much for that introduction. And now, as we actually begin with this session, so as I said, I'm going to interview you today. So my actually first question would be, before we start the discussion on the common issues that parents face at home while dealing with their children, and they really feel stranded. But before that, I would just like to ask you that there are some mental health issues which might manifest in the early years of life. So, what are, like, as we say, if it is identified early, so early identification intervention should help the children in their growing years. So, are there any such signs that if parents observe them? So, what are those warning signs which may suggest that there are some probable mental health issue would be there for the child?
Sure. Okay, so that's a very relevant question, Sangeeta, because often people feel that mental health issues only happen in adults, or it can happen to anyone else, but not in my family. But the seeds of mental health are often sowed in childhood, early childhood, in fact, and it is often a result of multiple factors. Often, primarily when it comes to children, the kind of interactions that the parents are having with their child, the kind of family environment that they're growing in, also along with the genetic predisposition and other social factors that contribute to good mental health of each child, right? Now, before we go to pathology, let's just understand what are the normal developmental milestones that are seen in these kids. Okay, so 3 to 5 is where they have finished with the toddler years, and they're in that preschool stage where now they're preparing themselves for formal learning. So this is the stage where now their vocabulary is increasing day by day. They can now use more words to express themselves. Although their thinking is still very egocentric, means what they still feel that they are the center of the world and are therefore not able to see others' perspective, which is why everything is mine, and they are yet just learning to share. In fact, in a 3-year-old, you will find that when they're playing, they'll often not play in groups. They will tend to play solitary, and they will not be able to share. But as they grow older, say 4 or 5-year-old, then they're able to now get into more cooperative play where they will enjoy playing with children of their age or even older children for that matter, and will now learn the concept of sharing. So these are some of the social skills that children are also developing. Along with these, now they understand that the cause and effect relationship, that when I do something, then this is likely to happen, is what they're constantly learning through experimentation as well. So this is a stage of exploration as well, where they're going to, accidentally maybe touch something hot and realize, okay, when I touch hot, the effect is that my hand burns. Or if I jump on this is where I can, if I'm on a jungle gym in the play area, then this is the level I will try and explore. But I know that beyond this, I'm likely to fall and I will stop myself. So that much understanding now they're gaining to have. Also, now they're able to identify between real objects and unreal, in the sense that they'll be able to differentiate between a stuffed toy, a dog, which is a stuffed toy, and a real dog. That differentiation now they will be able to understand. Also, they are now very curious. As you said, their brains are like sponges, literally, which are absolutely absorbing anything that you're giving them in that is being fed into them. Okay, so all these why, what, when questions, and parents actually feel, I've myself gone through that stage where my daughter is now 6, younger one, but even now she keeps asking me a lot of questions. But this is the curious mind where they are asking, why should I not go out now? Or why should I not be touching? We are, during this Corona times, we are telling them that you have to wash your hands. So they will ask you, why should I wash my hands all the time? Why should I wear a mask? What will happen if I don't wear a mask? What is coronavirus? Can I get coronavirus? So all these curious questions can come to their mind. They also start to, their attention span is still not too long, which is why they can't play, or they get bored easily, very easily. So they cannot play a game for too long, even if we expect them to. So as parents, we may wish that, they keep themselves occupied throughout the day. We just hand them a toy and we then tell them, okay, play with this. But after half an hour or so, they're naturally going to feel bored by it or tired playing it, simply because their attention span is not that developed. But at the same time, now is the time when they now start to understand rules. So if this is the time to lay rules with regards to family rules, or even that's the reason why now they're able to attend preschool, where or the teacher is giving them some instructions, they're able to understand that, you know uh, these are the rules that are being set and I need to follow them. Also, they are able to understand praise. They are able to identify emotions in others. So if mother is getting upset, or mother is angry, or dad is angry, then even through their non-verbal expressions, they are able to understand that my mother is upset right now, or she's angry, even though they may not verbalize. And they start to use more of verbal aggression in the form of, say, back answering or teasing others, instead of more physical aggression. So now physical aggression in this stage starts to go down, and you might observe a bit of verbal aggression that is coming up. So they're very eager also to carry out responsibilities. So if you give them some chores to do around, they will be happily doing it. Taking on new things is something they enjoy doing this at this stage. So these are the normal developmental milestones that you observe in this age group. Okay. Now coming to mental health issues. Okay, so now mental health issues I'll divide into two groups. One is what we call as the neurodevelopmental disorders. Okay, many of you might have heard these terminologies like ADHD or ADD or things like autism या स्वमग्नता, जो आजकल हम काफी सुनते हैं, but we are not yet sure what it is. So let me start off by explaining what autism is. Okay, so autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder in which you see deficits in either their communication or in terms of their social behavior. Okay, so what are some of the symptoms of autism is I'm going to explain in short. So usually by the age of 1 to 1.5 years, children start to use language. They're able to talk. They're able to also tell their needs to their parents. They usually have good eye contact with their parents. But if by the age of 3, if your child is not exhibiting this, where their language is extremely poorly developed, they're not able to even say a few words, and they are not able to maintain eye contact, they're not maintaining eye contact rather, or they're not showing that kind of social reciprocity. That is, if I'm praising them, even then they're not showing any kind of gestures or non-verbal behavior to show that they're feeling happy about it. Or even if they're in pain, they're not able to tell their parents. Usually when a child falls, he'll come crying and tell their mother that I've hit my I've injured myself. But a child with autism, because their social needs are very different, because their social development is different than the other kids, they do not comment. That form of attachment is not there with their parents, which is why they are not able to let their parents know about the same. As well as sometimes you'll find them repeating certain behaviors, like a lot of repetitive or stereotypic behaviors is what we call, where they might just spin for a keep spinning all the time, or banging their head at times. They're very when it comes to routines, if there's a slightest change in the routine, or any change in terms of dress, or in terms of change in sudden change in eating, or any change, major changes that happen in their day-to-day life, then they're not able to tolerate it, and that can result in easy temper tantrums, like screaming, yelling, banging their head, as I said, and these type of behaviors might be exhibited. So these are some of the signs to recognize that there is possibly something wrong, and it is best to get it verified or checked by a pediatric developmental pediatrician. Best place to take for the first time is to a developmental pediatrician. Then the developmental pediatrician will ask you a lot of questions to understand whether this is autism or not, and then might make appropriate referrals in order to develop those skills. All right. So that's one form of neuro. Again, important to understand is that, again, this is a very neurologically driven illness. So it's not something to do with the parenting style, or it's not something to do where the child is at fault. That is something very important to understand. And if intervened early, if it is identified early, then there are a lot of therapies that can be done. A speech therapist can be involved, occupational therapist can be involved, and these children are also able to attend normal school for that matter, because again their intelligence might be normal, but they are just differently abled kids. Just like there are different types of kids, different interests that children have. Similarly, autistic children are different, and but they differ in terms of their social interaction and in terms of their communication development. Right. Then we come to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Now, attention deficit, as the name suggests, it means that these children have difficulty in sustaining attention. Now, as I said, as it is in the age group of 3 to 6, the attention span is not that long. But these kids, the attention span is very, very short. They are just, they won't be able to, sustain attention for more than 10 minutes. They'll get easily distracted. They will not be able to follow through instructions. They will be very fidgety in nature. In terms of hyperactivity, they will exhibit a lot of energy in the sense that I've heard parents telling me that literally रात तक उनकी energy वैसी ही रहती है and they have difficulty in even falling asleep. So getting them to bed is also a difficult task. Uh, they are not able to follow, as I said, multiple instructions. They have difficulty in following. They're very impulsive in the sense that they will not wait for their turn. They will do things out of turn. They can exhibit a lot of mood swings as well, where they will get irritable very quickly, or they might exhibit signs of restlessness, or become, as I said, losing things. Especially if they were going to a preschool, also you will definitely get complaints from the teacher that the child was not sitting in one place, the child does not follow instructions, the child is always looking here and there. So these symptoms have to be present in more than one setting. Okay, usually children exhibit this kind of behavior when at home, because they know that parents hai apne, we can do whatever we want. But usually in school they will follow the rules that are being told by teacher. But children with ADHD, because they have these deficits in terms of their attention and in terms of their modulating or regulating these motor energy, they will not be able to hold that energy that they have even in a classroom setting where there are defined rules. And which is why when they enter first grade or second grade, that's when usually it gets detected. By the age of 7 8 is when parents realize that despite going to school now, the complaints are coming frequently from teachers that they're not able to sit and they're exhibiting this kind of high energy. They're not able to complete the classwork. They're not able to, there are a lot of omissions, a lot of scribbling, a lot of mistakes in their work, which then, again gets reprimanded, because again, parents think that they're misbehaving, they're just, but badmash bachcha hai mera. You'll always hear these kind of complaints coming from parents that shaitan bachcha hai, sunta hi nahi hai. उसके ऐसे लगता है कि पैरों में wheels लगे हुए हैं. It's always on the go type of a child. So they're very pareshan. Parents get extremely pareshan if you have an ADHD child, and they are at their wits end to do not understand what to do with their child. So this is what you will see with kids with ADHD. Apart from this, usually learning disability is also something that you will start seeing in these early years. If anyone has watched the movie Tare Zameen Par, then it's been beautifully depicted. The condition of learning disability is being beautifully depicted in that child who is having difficulty with reading, writing, and mathematics. So usually, it is, and it is very common that way. 5 out of every 100 kids will have some form of learning disability. Again, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, means there is some defect in the wiring of the brain, which results in these kind of deficits. Again, important to understand that these children are not less intelligent. Okay, the intelligence, if you check on the standardized IQ tests, then it is absolutely normal. But they have these specific deficits when it comes to either reading or writing or mathematical skills. So at this age, 3 to 5, pre-primary, when usually they learn their alphabets or they learn these single-digit numbers, counting, and just begin to gain some motor skills. Yet I would say, till the 5, do not emphasize more on writing. Reading skill is something that needs to be encouraged in these children, because their motor skills are still not very developed, and they may have difficulty in grip in terms of fine motor skills, and gripping a pencil might be a difficult task for them. So don't push too much for writing. It will eventually develop once the reading is more fluent. So Ajkal, and I believe that most schools, I know that Symbiosis schools is in terms of this, they are very aware and attuned to the latest developments in academics when it comes to preschoolers as well. And I'm sure that they emphasize phoneme, learning through sounds, reading through understanding of the sounds that each alphabets or consonants make, and thereby emphasizing reading skill. But if you notice that children are literally struggling, where other kids are, able to write or tell the alphabets, and the children here are literally struggling, even though you are helping them with reading, they're making a lot of omissions, a lot of, changes. Again, I mean, 3 to 5 is still too early, I would say. Wait till primary, and the teacher will let you know if they're having difficulties. But keep this at the back of the mind. Don't start punishing your child or being too harsh on them for not being able to learn their academics well at this age. These are some of the neurodevelopmental disorders. Now, coming to core mental health issues, anxiety disorders. Chinta ki bimari is one of the commonest disorders that are seen in children and adolescents. Okay. And out of all the anxiety, there are various kinds of anxiety disorders. The most common that are seen in this age group is what we call as the separation anxiety disorder. And another one that we see is selective mutism. So separation anxiety disorder is a disorder in which the child is excessively anxious when separated from their primary caregiver, whether it's their mother, father, and they have constant worry that something wrong or terrible might happen. They're worried about their safety of their caregivers, and usually you will find that when they go, especially happens when the child is going to school for the first time, when the parent is dropping their child to school for the first time and they're entering preschool, you'll find majority of the kids cry on the first day. Koi nahi rota hai. First day it's new environment, new thing. Going away from parents is a thing exciting. But first week you will find majority of the children are crying. They want to be back with their parents because they understand that okay, abhi idhar koi routine follow karna hai, and it's not all that fun. That's when you'll notice this separation anxiety. So that is very common and nothing to worry about. But if it persists, where they are constantly clinging to their parents, where they are not, it's not easy for the teachers to pacify them, and they keep crying in school through the end of the school, they refuse to go to school. They have physical symptoms like stomach aches, vomiting. They refuse to eat, or even when they're going to bed, they will cling to their parents. They'll refuse to sleep separately. They will have nightmares that something terrible is going to happen. So usually when they're separated from whether it's school or whether parents are going to work, that time also they may demonstrate the separation anxiety symptoms. And selective mutism is a condition in which, in selected situations, so while the child's language development is perfect, they're able to communicate uh, in most situations, there are certain situations, usually it happens in school, when they choose to they just refuse to speak. And that is why it is called as selective mutism. It is a kind of anxiety disorder. So there are some underlying causes for it, which again, it would be best for a counselor to talk to the child and ascertain. But usually with good treatment and therapy and early identification, most children are able to overcome both separation anxiety as well as selective mutism. So it does not go into long-term problems. But there could be certain early signs of anxiety disorders that we might notice in these children, which are yet not developed into a proper anxiety disorder, where you notice that the child is excessively fearful or shy, or is withdrawn, and is has demonstrates behaviors like thumb sucking or nail biting, or bed wetting for that matter. Usually by this age, bladder control has occurred and most children are toilet trained. But if they are still not able to, if they're still demonstrating bed wetting at times, then that could be a sign of anxiety. Uh, yeah, these are some of the symptoms to indicate, or they're very in terms of their feeding habits also. You will notice that they're very picky or choosy. Then that could be, I mean, again, this is this is a very common symptom and this might get parents worried, but at times it can be an indication that the child is anxious about something, which is why the child is not eating or sleeping properly.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. And thank you so much for that explanation. But again, that makes us think that already these children are in that is developmental stage, and already they are going through so much curves. Still, lockdown phase for children in the sense they are confined at homes. So, like elders, do you think in addition this pandemic situation must have affected these little ones also? Means what kind of effect we can see in these children from 3 to 5 years of age?
See, I would say that every age group is affected by this pandemic because ultimately, our environment, our social environment only has undergone such a tremendous change that it is going to impact our young ones as well. Now, three things so I can definitely say have changed for our children, for these tiny tots. A is, they not being allowed to go out and play with their kids when again they have so much energy, and playing with their age kids is such a need for underlying need for them, that that restriction on physical movement has certainly led to channelizing that energy in a wrong manner, where now they are demonstrating that it's coming out in the form of irritability or aggression at home, where you'll find them playing with, say, table tennis racket or ball at home instead of playing outside, because they need to channelize that energy somewhere. And then you can a lot of parents are getting distressed because things at home are breaking, or they're not able to manage their kids because they're just not under control. So that is one thing we are certainly observing. Second is, because everything has gone on a virtual mode and most parents are also on their devices, definitely time that is being spent online or in front of devices or screen time has gone up considerably, because even so preschools are being conducted in an online manner currently, as well as because sometimes parents are busy, parents are working, both are IT professionals. They'll say, okay, just to keep you quiet, just to not allow you to interfere with my work, why don't you play this video game for some time and entertain yourself, or watch television. And then children, obviously it's a mode of stimulation, it's a mode of entertainment for them because they're not allowed to play outside. That becomes a source of releasing that pleasurable chemical in your brain called dopamine, and it becomes addictive in nature, where then they are not able to get out of that at all, and end up spending large amount of time in front of their television. Plus, look, as I said, the interactions that are happening at home, the parents' mental health also impacts the child's mental health. And these are stressful times for parents as well, where there might be so many stressors that the parents are undergoing themselves in terms of their job security, finances, in terms of the household chores. There are certain places where still maids are not being allowed to come. And looking at the whole social scenario right now, they are also under tremendous stress, and that stress gets then displaced onto kids, where parents are you know behaving in a very angry tone, or shouting, yelling. Their patience has gone down, they're getting frustrated as well, and that the child is observing, and that stress that the child is experiencing, he's not able to verbalize because probably that kind of language is not being used at home, and then it gets demonstrated in the form of behavioral disturbances. So if I were to tell what are the behavioral disturbances that we are observing currently in the last 6 months, A, I feel that children are demonstrating more regressive behaviors, where like they will talk like a infant. They will probably be clinging to their parents instead of playing independently. They will, all the time be clinging on to their mother or father and saying, "No, you have to be with me the whole time." Sometimes, if a lot of news is being observed on TV as well, that has a negative impact on children, where because things are not being spoken in the house openly about the coronavirus or the pandemic, then it creates this fear of unknown, which the child then demonstrates in the form of clinginess or regressive behaviors such as thumb sucking or nail biting, which had stopped, might again start resurfacing. Or, as I said, bedwetting can be one of the signs that the child is feeling anxious or child is feeling scared. You notice that these children demonstrate irritability, they back answer, They at times become physically aggressive as well. They have become fussy with their eating. They're not sleeping early. They are, becoming very stubborn, and all these behavioral disturbances are we are noticing in now, especially since it's been 6 months. That they are homebound, especially children who have not stepped out of home at all, have definitely started. I've had numerous parents call me to tell me that, we are noticing that they're crying often, without any reason. Recently, I had a parent call in to tell me that their 4.5-year-old child who enjoys this online school is uh, now crying at night and saying, I want to go to school, I don't want to do online school anymore, or becoming very stubborn. It's very difficult to manage the child at home. So parents are also getting very concerned about this kind of behavior that they're noticing in children.
And definitely, ma'am, and when you spoke about children getting aggressive or stubborn and temper tantrums, I think that is the some main issue which parents are always bothered about. Like when the child and it is seen a consistent pattern in their behavior, especially children in this age. So they frequently throw temper tantrums. They just disobey, don't listen. They're very stubborn at times. So in such a situation, what would you suggest for the parents to do immediately at that time?
Correct. So yes, this is an absolute challenging task to handle temper tantrums or to handle stubborn behavior. Uh, for this, we need to first understand temper tantrums. Temper tantrums are most common actually in the age group of 1 to 3. And they usually happen when a child A is either feeling very tired. So physically they are very tired, they're very sleepy. Or three, if their need at that point is not getting met, their demand, whatever they're asking for is not getting met, then they can demonstrate a temper tantrum. And yeah, these are the common situations in which children throw temper tantrums. Now, stubbornness can also be a part of the temperament. Again, there are certain, every child has its own personality, and this is the age when they start demonstrating certain temperamental traits. And some of them are very genetic. Like you often find that if the father is of a certain nature, then child is likely to exhibit some of the same traits. So children pick up these traits either from their father or mother. Okay, so if a child is stubborn, the likelihood that the parent also demonstrated this kind of stubbornness in their childhood is very high. Similarly, ADHD also for that matter is very genetic. So if one of the parents has had ADHD, then there's 50% chance that the child might have ADHD as well. So understanding that genes are also responsible for kinds of behavior that the child demonstrates. So first ensure that the child is not hungry, or the child is not physically too tired when the child is throwing a temper tantrum. Second is, it's very, very important that you stay calm at that point, because children learn through imitation. And if you also start to demonstrate that kind of stubborn behavior, or you also start yelling and shouting when the child is also yelling and shouting, then the child is thinking, okay, that's what my mom and dad are also doing, and that reinforces their behavior rather than calming them down. So although it might be very difficult in the moment to stay calm, I need to tell myself that this is a difficult situation. I acknowledge that the child is distressed, but what is it doing to my emotions? Also, I need to understand as a parent. Therefore, maybe even if it takes maybe just moving away from the situation in that moment, maybe just move away from the situation, calm yourself down, prepare what you're going to tell your child before you approach the child who is throwing a temper tantrum. Then, so acknowledge the upset in the child, that you tell the child that I observe that you are getting upset. Can we talk? So encourage the child to use language rather than exhibiting, the motor behavior that is exhibiting in the time of fidget, crying, shouting, or so encourage the child to verbalize. This is an indication. The behavior is a manifestation of an underlying need that is unmet. So try and understand what it is that the child is trying to express, and acknowledge that and say that while you understand that this is a need, if you think that it is something that as a parent you cannot provide at that moment, then you can tell in a very calm manner that although you want this at the moment, it is not possible for me to give. Now, the child continues to demonstrate the temper tantrum, uh, then you will ensure that the child is safe. Physical safety of the child is something you need to be careful about, because if he's banging his head, then that's something that can be dangerous. But other than that, if he's screaming and crying, then just tell them, okay, you understand that they're emotionally upset. This is, instead of telling, do not do this, try and tell them three, four alternate, give them two, three options that they can do in the moment to calm themselves down. Give them two, three techniques to calm themselves down. If that is also not working, give them some time, ignore them. And that you must have done when your child was 1 to 3 as well at times. So ignore them, give them the time to self-regulate themselves, because you're actually teaching them a skill which is going to be very useful for them later on when they go into the age of adolescence, of regulating, being able to regulate their own emotions. So most often what happens is parents lose their patience. Parents cannot tolerate that screaming. They think, oh my God, this cannot be tolerated. This kind of behavior needs to be punished. And they end up giving very harsh punishments. They end up naming, shaming, threatening. I've seen parents when they go to the extent of telling them that if you do this one more time, then you will be thrown out of this house, or you will be made to stand outside the house the whole day. You will not be given food. So these kind of very harsh punishments are unwarranted, because it's only going to create fear in their minds, these young minds that are growing, and fear from a primary caregiver to whom they look for support and for their unconditional love. If they feel that this parent is intimidating or threatening, then the likelihood that this behavior will not only not stop, but they're likely to demonstrate this kind of behavior when they go out and play with friends, where they know that, okay, I cannot demonstrate this behavior at home, but I'm going to bully my friends outside. Or else they will become very shy, they will become non-expressive, and that is more harmful in the long run. So rather than punishing, telling them about consequences is good. Like taking away some privileges from them. That if you continue to do this, okay, you know what, you're going to lose. Again, telling them in a very concerning language. So the tone in which you're speaking matters more, uh, and it is that you're still demonstrating that I still care for you and I still love you, but that this behavior that you're displaying right now is not okay. That message needs to go out very clearly that you as a person are fine. This behavior at this point in time is not okay, because it is not the way to ask for something that you want, and it is not always possible for you to get what you want in that moment. That message needs to go across. If we are not able to give that message, then the trick is that method that you're using is not going to work, and you'll realize that it's a failing battle that you're fighting. So these are some of the tips I would suggest.
Definitely, ma'am. And I'm sure, like, if implemented, it should help parent in that situation when the child is actually throwing a tantrum. And just now, as you mentioned, that among the other traits shown, extreme shyness is also seen. So it is totally contrast to what you spoke just now. So we saw what parents can do if the child is throwing a temper tantrum or very stubborn and rigid. But what if the child is then opposite, extreme shy and withdrawn and is not at all expressing himself or herself in social situations, in school? Sometimes teachers complain that they don't understand whether the child has understood, whether the child is really understanding something, what is happening around. So sometimes children are, they just don't express at all and they're extremely shy.
Right.
So again, some tips here for parents.
Sure. So, firstly, shyness can again be a very temperamental trait where, by nature itself, some children are shy, some children are introverted, and that is also okay. It's not necessary that every child has to be an extrovert and is expressive in terms of their verbal capacity. They may be expressive in other ways in the form of art or music or any other creative field that they choose. They might show their expressivity there. So it's not necessary that every child will, be a group leader or will stand in front of the class and be the monitor. It's not necessary. But parents also get into a lot of pressure when it comes to their child. Especially now, I'm seeing that that nuclear families are there and parents are having only one child or at the most two kids. It becomes almost like a competition among parents where they feel my child has to be excellent in everything that they do. This kind of expectation that the parents have, that what they have to play, they have to be good in sports, they have to be good in academics, they have to be excellent in terms of their oratory skills, they have to be able to make lots of friends, they have to be able to talk to their teacher openly, all these expectations, and that too in immediately. It is not like they're ready to wait. If there's come to know, okay, my child is not interacting, then it's like some threat that the parents take. Oh my god, something is wrong, I need to push my child and enroll them in some classes, and then push the child. No, you have to go and speak today. If you don't speak, then just see, I'm not going to allow you to go down to play with friends. Also, I'm going to take away your favorite toy. I'll not make your favorite food at all. So it is like, I have to do this or else it is not tolerable, sort of a situation which the parents create. And already remember that the child is shy. This is going to only further shut them down, because the child will think, oh my god, this, because the relationship, the kind of dynamic relationship that they share with their parents, if they even find the parents as someone they need to be scared of, then imagine the outside world is even more scary. So instead of talking openly, when does a child talk openly? When the child can trust others, or the child feels safe enough to open in front of others, that's when the child is going to open up. Now, how does that safe and trusting relationship develop? It starts at home. If that safe and trusting relationship is there at home, then the child will feel safe enough to open up in front of strangers. Okay, and that's a gradual process, because as I said, stranger anxiety is quite common even at the age of 3, where on the first day, because it's a new environment and new people, they are going to be a little bit inhibited before they start speaking. And every child will be different in the way they interact depending on their family circumstances. Children who have grown up in joint family are likely to be more extroverted when they go to school because they've been interacting with their grandparents. Whereas children who are growing in a nuclear family where both parents are working and outside of home for most time, they are likely to be more introverted. They're likely to be more into books and be with themselves. But that does not mean they are missing out something or anything like that. Yes, it's good to encourage them to have friends, but there's a difference between encouragement and forceful parenting. So there can be ways in which you can encourage a child to develop relationships, and that can also be done very gradually and with a lot of praise and positive reinforcement. So, maybe, and that can be first role modeled at home, where you are connecting with your family, with your relatives, the kind of communication skills that you demonstrate at home, the kind of conversations that you have with your partner or with your in-laws or with your, whoever else is living with you, with your neighbors, with your friends, with your office colleagues. That itself is a very good source for the children to learn. Secondly, the child is shy, acknowledge that I'm observing, are you having, and try and understand the child. Okay, do you want to really make friends? Are you missing out friends? Do you want my help in making friends? Let's go out, be with the child. And then you say, okay, now you know what, you can go and just say hi to this friend. Let's see what happens. And if he does go and do it, praise the child. Well done. You went and said hi. It was really nice of you. But that positive reinforcement and praise does a lot of good things to these children. As I said, this is the age when they understand praise a lot, and they because this releases a chemical in your brain called dopamine, which says that, okay, if I do this, it actually makes me feel good. So let me do it again. So it allows them to take these kind of risks gradually, and then they will gradually, once they realize that there is actually no fear associated with talking to people, then they will gradually develop these skills. So, but if you feel that, over a period of time, despite doing this, they are absolutely not mixing, and you really doubt that there could be some issue that the child is facing, then do not hesitate to seek the help of school counselor, or bring it to the notice of teachers. We are all stakeholders when it comes to important stakeholders when it comes to your child. And we all are. That's why, at SKU we emphasize this kind of holistic approach, where we realize that most of the times the problem is not with the child, but the problem is somewhere in the systemic issues, where it might be the interaction that is happening in the house, or it might be something that is happening in the school environment that often results in these kind of issues. So acknowledge that, and do not hesitate to approach the school counselor if you are struggling with dealing with this issue.
Definitely, ma'am, and I think that was a wonderful explanation, and it could really help parents, those who are finding it difficult to deal with a shy child. Now, going ahead, one more again a common problem faced as today we are talking about this age group 3 to 5 years, that children are extremely fussy eaters, and they don't eat what the parents want them to eat. So this also leading to parents sometimes giving in easily to the children's demands. So where children do eat lot of junk food. So being a fussy eater is a very common problem faced in this. It's a characteristic feature of this age. So again,
Absolutely.
your expert opinion on this. How can parents help their children here?
Okay. So yes, I think Indian parents are, over concerned, over involved with eating, and meal times are often a struggle in most houses. Again, eating habits is something which I'll say again, role modeling plays a very important role. Whatever habits have been inculcated right from an early age play an important role in how the child, what sort of eating habits the child is going to develop. uh, the child, maybe if he's being fed in front of a TV at an early age, then the child is likely to associate eating with television, and therefore demand that the television be put on every time that the child is eating, or else the child will refuse to eat. Or sometimes parents, I've seen this happening very commonly when they are in that infancy stage or toddler stage, where just to prevent them from running around, they will keep the mobile in front of the child and say, okay, watch this, what's your favorite program, whatever it is, Doraemon, or any other programs that the Peppa Pig, and children happily then open their mouth. It's almost like, Peppa Pig lagega, so I will open my mouth. So it's like that conditional response, where TV is associated with eating food, and as soon as that mobile is taken away, that is, considered as, uh, I will not eat, right? So do not encourage these kind of behaviors. A child, it's natural, what to say, it's a survival thing, need, that child when gets hungry will demand for food. Okay, so inculcate these habits from early on. Now, also make meal times, a family time where everybody is sitting at the table and where you are demonstrating healthy eating habits. Third, inculcate individual, make children independent with their eating from an early age. I see many houses where even at the age of 8, 10, 13, up to the age of 13 also, I've seen parents feeding their child, literally putting things in their mouth when the child is literally pursing their lips and forcing it into their mouth even when they're saying no. Now that is an absolute no, because children will develop aversion to food. Okay, they will develop phobia of food, and they will develop problems later on in life. So do not be so forceful that the child is saying repeatedly that he does not want to eat a certain food. Do not be too pushy with that as well. At the same time, you want to encourage healthy eating habits. Make sure that you're buying healthy stuff at home. Keep junk food at a minimum. Let them know that there are snack times when you can eat your cookie, when you can eat your biscuits. But at meal times, we expect you to eat chapati, bhaji, roti, dal, sabzi, whatever you're making at home. And that the child is encouraged to eat with their own hand. And again, as I said, if the child is saying, don't force the child when the child has eaten already something, and then you expect 8 o'clock is dinner time, so everybody has to eat, but the child has just ate something, and you force them to eat. They will not, unless the child is hungry. Do not force the child to eat. Also, I noticed that at the age of 3, when they've just finished with their toddler age group, uh, children are given a lot of milk to drink in the morning. and then they expect ki breakfast bhi kare jaldi se. So that's not going to happen unless their stomach is empty. They will not be able to, take in solids. So now start to decrease the quantity of milk that you're giving them, and increase the amount of solids. All the breakfast items that you're eating, they encourage them to eat. Bring in some, like I do this at my house, and it works well for me. That weekends, yes, every day chapati sabzi becomes boring, and these current times are as it is monotonous. Lockdown times are monotonous. So bringing in some variety on a weekend, also adds to flavors, and you can actually make it healthy as well. Like pizza also can be made extremely healthy by adding a lot of vegetables on it and a lot of cheese. Cheese has a lot of protein as well. So you can make pizza which look also attractive, which are appetizing, and which is still very nutritious. You can get the whole wheat pizza bread also nowadays. Also pasta, where you put in all vegetables, put broccoli, put mushrooms, put carrots, put whatever vegetables come to your mind, you can put it. And children will happily, because there are a lot of colors involved in that food. It looks very appetizing. There's cheese. You can make it in white sauce or red sauce. So make it a little interesting, so that children are also happy. And then on other days, they're able to enjoy our routine food as well. So don't force, encourage, and thirdly, do not associate it with television or any other activity just to distract the child so that the child eats. Make sure the child will never go hungry even if he says mujhe aaj nahi khana hai, and becomes very stubborn while eating. Allow the child not to eat. Kuch nahi hota hai. They are not going to suddenly become ill if they don't eat one meal. If they are being very, very stubborn with their eating, then you say, okay, this is what is there today for dinner. And do not then compromise and say, ki, okay, nahi, nahi, beta, khana to zaruri hai. Fir kya khana chahte ho aap, beta? And the child will say, mujhe chips chahiye, mama, then only I will eat. Then mama is saying, okay, baba, kuch to kha le, at least you should not sleep hungry. So I say, kuch nahi. If you give in once, that becomes the learned behavior is that, okay, when I nag, I get what I want, and chips are handed over to me. So rather than saying that, you say, okay, you know what? I told you chips are for snack time. Tomorrow evening at 4 o'clock, you'll get your chips. Right now, this is the dinner that we all are eating. If you're not hungry, I'm happy for you to wait till you get hungry, and you can sit and have your meal, and I'll come accompany you during that time. But this is what it is. So this gives a message to the child that these are the rules of my family, these are the rules of the house, and that there is only this much negotiation that is possible. So rather than being again too upset about it or making it a big issue that mera bachcha khata nahi hai, be calm about it, and make it an enjoyable experience. Meal times should be happy times. Do not bring up tense issues during meal times when you're talking about something like the pandemic, या फिर न्यूज में वो सुशांत सिंह राजपूत का क्या चल रहा है. All the discussions do matter because the child is pondering and listening. Although you may feel कि ये छोटा बच्चा क्या समझने वाला है, I'm talking to my husband about this, but remember that the child is very keenly listening to what you're talking. So make sure that meal times are happy times, nice, relaxing times, which the child associates with food, and therefore make it an enjoyable experience.
Definitely, ma'am. I think even that was again a wonderful explanation, and I'm sure parents would be resonating with what you said. So again, so considering all this, and if we have to club them under one umbrella, so are there any positive techniques for disciplining the child? So that once if parents inculcate these positive techniques, it will help them in any which situation in dealing with the child. So time spent constructively or the other positive ways of disciplining the child.
Correct. You use the exact correct word, Sangeeta, positive disciplining and not punishment. Okay. So I think discipline is important because, having that kind of structure, routine, you're teaching the child. This is the age when you're teaching them the values, the morals, teaching them good manners, good habits. It's all very, very important and cannot be, undermined at all. But there's a way to go about it. And as I say, along with this also comes the important aspects of being emotionally literate. using the language of emotions in the house is also very, very important. Because see, children are also going, maybe they are in a different emotional state when you're trying to tell them something, and that is why they're throwing a tantrum. So allowing them to express it in that emotional language is very important, and that will happen when you start expressing that language in at home. So one of the key things I would say is firstly understand that the developmental age is like, as I said, it's like a sponge. The brain is sponge. This is the time to encourage reading, read a story with them, read a lot of books with them, talk to them about different things. Even if it's household chores, involve them in. One of the things to even encourage feeding is, children, if they're allowed to set the table, table, wiping the table after dinner. It is that sense of responsibility, enables them to think, okay, there is some value, I'm doing something special here. And that makes them feel absolutely wonderful about themselves. So give them such a task, involve them in your household chores, give them little responsibilities at home, and sing lot of songs to them, sing with them, play board games, play different kinds of puzzles that is stimulating to their brain because they are learning all this. uh, and talk about, as I said, even if it is small things, I went to the grocery shop, I got this, telling them these different items increases their vocabulary. So talk to your child, communicate with them, connect with them, try to understand what is happening in their world, because this is the age also when they start, the imaginary world is really expansive, and they often end up playing, that pretend play where, they, in girls especially, you see that, I'm not being gender biased, but usually girls playing with dolls where, the one doll is father, she's the mother, and then they're telling, okay, now, it's time to go to bed, and she's disciplining her own children. Through observing their play also, you come to know, what is going on in the child's mind. So that kind of pretend play, or children playing this game, doctor, all these are kind of beautiful games that allow their imagination, their creativity to expand, explore, and allow them to do all these things. Don't be too worried about, yes, having a routine, having a structure to a day is important, but allowing some time for free play, that unstructured play in this age group is also very important. Play is very, very important for these kids. uh, at least 1 hour of unstructured play, 1 hour of structured play, 2 hours of play, I would say, is very essential. If now in this unlock phase, if there is opportunity for your child to play with other kids, allow them to do so wearing a mask. It is okay for children to go and play out with other kids. And after coming home, just tell them that they have to wash their hands properly, maybe change their clothes, have a bath, if possible, and then it should be fine. Now, when it comes to disciplining, as I said, yes, setting rules in the house is very important, because then when they actually disobey, you tell them that, okay, this was the family rule that was set in, and that there are consequences to behavior rather than punishments. You're telling them that if you, because I said cause effect relationship, now the child is able to understand. So if I do not come home by say 7:30, then tomorrow I will not be able to play for 2 hours. I'll be only able to play for 1 hour. So consequences also have to be according to the wrong behavior that the child is displaying. It can't be too extreme. Or if you want, like typically timeouts are given, right? So 1 minute per the number of years of the child. So if the child is 3 years old, then only 3 minute timeout. Or if the child is 4 years old, only 4 minute timeout. The timeout should not be of a very long period. What is a timeout? Timeout is where in a corner of the room, or a place where there is no stimulation for the child. It's a very boring place for the child to be in, so that the child recognizes that if I misbehave, then I'm being kept in the, I'm given a timeout for this kind of behavior. So setting these rules in the house is important, but harsh punishments, shouting, yelling, shaming the child, name calling up, you're a hopeless child, you're worthless child, you're lazy child, you're a dumb child. Do not add adjectives. Comment only on the behavior of the child. Abhi aapne jo kiya, वो आप ही बताओ सही था या गलत था. Encourage the child also to think whether he is doing right or wrong. If he says, फिर भी कोई कोई बदमाश बच्चे होते हैं, and he'll say, हाँ मैंने तो सही किया, then you tell them, okay, tell me what happened when you did this. Explain to them that what they did, what sort of consequence or impact it had on the other person. This is how they're going to learn that everything that I do has not only an impact on myself, but it has an impact on other people around me. And that is how they will learn that to take responsibility for their actions and for their behaviors as well. And again, as I said, you are the best role model for them. This is the age when they imitate you a lot as well. So, setting that tone in the house is very important. If you are on your mobile devices for a very long period of time, they are also going to do the same thing. I have noticed that with my daughter also. Like if I'm going home, even मुझे office के calls भी आते हैं, लेकिन my daughter will immediately say, "Mama, see, you're on the mobile all the time. Then why am I not allowed to be on my mobile?" They're going to question you immediately with this, and that reasoning then will not be helpful because for them, then at that point, it's equal relationship that they have. Then you can't say, I'm an adult, so I can do whatever I like. That does not work. So, try to you limit your mobile use. Sleep time, ensure that they're getting adequate sleep. ये बच्चों को they still need 10 to 12 hours of good sleep. So make sure that that sleep routine is in place where you have a winding down ritual before bedtime. Some children are too stimulated even before bed, like as if दुनिया भर की सारी एनर्जी अभी रात को ही टाइम आ गई है, and that frustrates parents most. कि अभी हम we are all tired from the day's work and now you have all the energy to talk and chatter, but we just want to go to bed. That's the time when likely punishments or hitting is likely to happen. So make sure that you have that winding down ritual where that you're dimming the lights half an hour before bedtime, where you're reading a book with the child. The child is dressed in his night dress. Uh, you know, these so likely conflict कब कब होता है when the child is eating food. Homework के ऊपर से there is खिचखिच, and sleep time के ऊपर से खिचखिच, and then sibling rivalry is another thing that can fight between the older one and the younger one is again a difficult task for parents to manage. But remember, when two kids are fighting in the house, first thing is make sure they're physically safe, separate both of them, and then sit down and allow them to talk chance by chance about what has happened. Acknowledge that both are disturbed because what and that you understand that you wanted this at the same time and you wanted this at the same time, but tell them that it's not okay to hit. Rather, what are the alternatives you need to tell them? Don't saying do not don't all the time is only telling them negative things. Rather, use a lot of positives. Tell them what is to be done so that they know what is to be done if this is not to be done. So use a lot of positives in your language and manage your own stress better, effectively. And then don't really need to be too disciplinary in nature. Children are wonderful. They are just so innocent at this age that this is a little naughtiness in them. But it's a beautiful age group, and enjoy it with your child, I would say, rather than feeling, "Ugh, why did I jump into this?"
Yes, thank you so much for that, ma'am. And what I took from your answer is that really the mental state of parents is important as it is for the child, because what we believe here is parental well-being is going to lead to the child's well-being. So, of course, I think if parents also take care of their own self, like they give importance to their self-care, then I think they would, as you say, they will enjoy this stage and as children move through their childhood. So, coming towards the end of the session, because I think we have a lot of questions also.
Oh, is it?
So, which already you have covered though in your discussion and answers, but still, I think parents have put their concerns. So, before going to those questions, like if you can just tell parents, okay, now through this discussion also, if they realize and they observe that some changes in children's behavior and they wish to reach out to the school counselor. Now, the children are not going to schools actually. But then if they need counseling, or so how can parents go about this process? How can they reach out to the school counselors now when the schools are closed?
Correct. So yes, that's very important point that we cannot miss in this webinar is how to reach out to us, and for which what we thought was now that it is on online platform, we are still working. All the school counselors are still coming to school every single day and they're working from school. But for parents to be able to reach out, because of course their children are too young to individually and independently go to the school counselor. So we have prepared some questionnaires based on whatever things I told you today, in order to help you identify if there are any concerning behaviors or any concerning symptoms or signs which can indicate some either neurodevelopmental disorder or some mental health issue in the child. Then we have formulated the questionnaire accordingly, which are going to be emailed to you in the next week, in the coming week. And please do keep a watch on your emails. And if you are not receiving them, because we did have some trouble with when we send the questionnaires out to the older children. So if you're having trouble with receiving our emails, then please do let the school know so that then we are able to, send it out again to you guys. So that's a questionnaire that you'll receive, and then you have to just, if there is a problem, then you tick box the symptoms that you're noticing in your child and email it to us on skew at
Skew at
Simbi,
Cindy Schools dot.
simbischools.ac.
I've put the email address in the comment section so
Okay.
parents can send there. It's skew at
AC
simbischools.ac.in.
dot in. Yeah.
And this email ID has been mentioned in the comment section, so parents can mail it there.
Yes. So once you mail, the counselor who is, you have to tell your name of your child, which school he attends, the class, division and the class grade which he's in. And that way the respective counselor will be able to identify which school the child belongs to and accordingly get in touch with you with the further process.
Thank you, ma'am. And as I said, coming towards the end of the session, there are some questions which parents have put up in the comment section. So mostly many things you have covered, but there is one question where the parent has mentioned that after things normalize, it is not going to be easy for children. They might show some behavioral change. So how to deal with that? Like the behavioral changes shown by children when things normalize.
See, first and foremost, understand that behavior is a manifestation of what is happening internally. Okay, so हमारे जो भावना है and our vichar, our thoughts and our emotions are contributing to our behavior. The way we think affects the way we feel, and in turn it impacts our behavior. And similarly, the way we feel affects our thoughts and impacts our behavior, and the behavior can also influence our thoughts and emotions. So, uh, what are the changes that are likely to be seen? Yes, we are anticipating that once school opens after such a prolonged period of time, that the separation anxiety, as I mentioned, is likely to be seen because now children have been with their parents 24/7 and they've got used to their parents the whole time and not been exposed to any other environments. Absolutely. So one of the things that we anticipate to see is a lot of separation anxiety type behaviors, where the child will refuse to go to school, will complain of a lot of physical aches and pains. Physical symptoms like feeling like vomiting or stomach aches are very common in children. Uh, or they might exhibit extreme withdrawn behavior, where even if they're going to class, they may not want to talk to anyone, or they may sit very separately. This fear of coronavirus itself might play on their minds, and they might exhibit very extreme kinds of behavior where they will absolutely start repeated hand washing might be seen, or some sort of compulsive behaviors where they are absolutely, as I said, refusing to touch things, refusing to even touch their school bag, uh, can be seen in these children if that kind of fear, extreme fear, sets into their minds. Also, as I said, because now they are used to that kind of an environment where they were the attention of the family, because probably they were the only child in the house and they're used to that constant attention. In a school, obviously, that attention is going to be divided. which means that they might do certain things to gain attention of the teacher, like purposely being a bit disruptive, or playing some pranks on other kids. These sort of behaviors might also we anticipate that this might go up in kids. So what can be done? Talk if the teacher does raise this kind of concerns, or if you're observing these kind of concerns where the child is refusing to go to school. Uh, Instead of immediately first jumping to give solutions or telling the child, "Arey kuch nahi hone wala hai, you're all fine," nothing is. Instead of dismissing the child, or instead of negating the child, acknowledge the child, validate the child, ask the child to tell them what exactly they are experiencing in terms of emotion. So, as I said, developing that emotional language from this early age is very useful way of allowing the child to tell what is exactly going on in their mind. And one way of doing it is, even now, what you can do with your child is playing a game where, you ask them to tell them a feeling and tell them to express that through their face. So using their face to express different feelings is a good way of understanding, how much the child is interpreting emotions and developing that emotional language. Also, as I said, whenever the child is exhibiting signs of distress or upset, when the child is upset, tell them to verbalize it. What is it that you're feeling? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling worried? These emotional words try and encourage in the child. So even when you notice this behavioral manifestation, rather than jumping to comment on the behavior, tell your observations to the child. Okay, I'm observing that आपको स्कूल जाना अच्छा नहीं लग रहा है, आपको क्या लग रहा है, आपको डर लग रहा है, आपको कुछ तकलीफ, आई मीन अगेन यूज इमोशंस, आपको गुस्सा आ रहा है किसी बात का, आपको किसी बात का डर लग रहा है, आपको कुछ परेशानी है स्कूल में. So allowing them to acknowledging their emotions and then allowing them to express their concerns would be a better way to deal with it. And then of course, if you feel that still it is persisting and you're still not able to understand, then the school counselors are there to help you with this process. You're not alone in this. And as I said, this is at a global level, children are getting affected. So we are all in the same boat, and to lesser or greater extent, there will be variations. But we can all, if we are supportive of each other, we can all come out of it as well successfully.
Definitely, ma'am. I'm sure you must have answered that question. And there's one more interesting question that has come up from a parent, where a parent is asking, can children develop OCD, that is obsessive compulsive disorder, at this age? And the question is in two parts. So can children develop OCD in this age? OCD related to the obsession for perfection in this age. And the second part of the question is the child just doesn't listen to the mother at all and completely ignores what the mother is saying. So this is the main concern the parent has put up.
Right. So OCD, yes, it in certain cases, very rare instances. Usually, you will see it happening in OCD. Usually comes about in school-going children or early adolescents. But there are rare cases where even in early childhood, you do see certain cases of OCD. So for people who don't know what OCD stands for, it is obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive thoughts, images, uh, that the child has about certain things that the child realizes are senseless, but is these kind of thoughts keep repeating in his mind, keep intruding into their day-to-day activities, and thereby compel the child to take certain actions in order to bring the obsessive thoughts down. That is the nature of OCD, and that is extremely disabling kind of a disorder where the child themselves are undergoing a lot of child themselves experience a lot of distress because of these repetitive thoughts, and can demonstrate a lot of irritability as well. Can demonstrate a lot of aggressive behavior as well, because they are themselves not understanding what this is. It's difficult for them to comprehend what is happening to them. And as I said, it's so repetitive in their mind, it's absolutely very distressing illness to have. And yes, one of the symptoms can be obsession of perfectionism or symmetry, where they want things to be exactly in a certain order, certain way. Even if one thing is not in place, they will, make sure that again they're doing the thing over and over again, or sometimes it's obsession of cleanliness, where they feel that they've not washed their hands adequately and they'll keep washing it for 8 to 10 times, still so much so that the skin of their hands, literally gets peeled out, or they spend excessive hours in the bathroom because they're not satisfied that taking water is cleaning them, and any task takes a lot of time. Wearing clothes might take a lot of time, wearing shoes might take a lot of time, or you might observe that there's some magical thinking also that these children have, where certain numbers according to them are lucky, and that many times they need to repeat those tasks. So these kind of different obsessions are, there are many types of obsessions that a child can have, but the common ones are really of cleanliness, of doubt, where the child feels that whether I've closed the door or not, whether I've the windows are closed or not, the lights are closed, switched off or not, and then they repeatedly go and check whether they've done that or not. So yes, it is possible even in childhood. Sometimes, though, you have to differentiate it from temperamental traits. Again, there is something called as obsessive compulsive personality types, and certain, again, it can be very genetic, where parents are also quite obsessive, and therefore you see that those traits in children. But it's best for if you're observing that in your child, it's best for a counselor or a psychiatrist, for that matter, to assess the child in detail. If you have a doubt, it never hurts to actually take expert consultation rather than thinking about it too much and troubling your own mind. It's best to seek advice from a expert physician, or a pediatrician or a psychiatrist, who will be able to guide you properly rather than having those doubts ruminate in your mind. As I said, the earlier you intervene in any of these issues, the better is the chances that the child will be able to overcome these problems. Even if it is not a fully developed OCD, even if there are certain behavioral manifestations that you're worried about, it's best to take, like, sardi kasi ho rahi hai and you don't know what to do, you will go to a doctor and ask, right? Similarly, if there are any kind of these behavioral issues which you do not have clue to, seek help. No problems.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm sure you must have answered her query. Now, there's one more question coming. Then I think I can club all the questions which are on the use of mobile phones. But before that, there is one question from a parent who is asking that if you find the child doing an activity which is not good, now the parent has not specified that what he or she means by the activity is not good. But if a child is doing an activity which is not good for them, then what should the parents do in such a situation? Should they ignore, or should they scold, or should they stop the child from doing it, or should they allow the child to continue? So,
If the child is engaging in any activity that is harmful for their developmental age, which is inappropriate for their developmental age, for example, observing, watching violent programs or playing violent games on mobiles, or sexual theme related programs, either on TV or mobile, or engaging in play with the private parts. Now, there is a lot of curiosity when it comes to private parts in these young children, and sometimes they, out of curiosity and out of the need for stimulation, they might engage in behaviors, in self-stimulatory behaviors, where, especially in boys, they might fiddle with their private parts, or even for that matter, girls might fiddle with their private parts. So there are different types of, I mean, when you say activity which the child is not supposed to do, to my mind, these things come. When it comes to, as I said, watching inappropriate stuff, it is an absolute no, because it is likely to have very negative impact on the child. But the way you do it, again, is very important. Shouting the child and telling the child, नहीं 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 बिल्कुल नहीं देखना है, will only raise more curiosity and will get the child confused. Like, why is my mom, when everybody else is possibly watching in the house, why am I not being allowed to watch? So rather than doing that, maybe through a story, or maybe through, talking to them in very simple language in which they're understanding, कि कुछ कुछ चीजें होती है जो बच्चे करते हैं, कुछ चीजें होते हैं जो बड़े जाके करनी होती है. जैसे देखो, अभी खाना पकाना मम्मा करती है, आप करते हो क्या इस एज में? नहीं. अभी आपका उम्र क्या है? You have to play with your friends. You have to play these games. We can play all these games. This is something which will either create a lot of fear, or will create, you will not be able to understand, because this is not appropriate for your age. Is something you need to explain to your child, rather than shouting, or just taking it away from them without letting them know why you have taken it away. Will mean that they can do it again. This time mama is taken away, but without her notice I can do it. So the message needs to be clear that this is not appropriate for you at this age, and this is the reason why. And that these clear words have to go to the child. Instead, what can you do? Again, as I said, give alternatives. These are the things you can do. There are many things that we can do together. These are the things you can watch on television. So age appropriate 1 hour television, 1 hour what to say, device time is okay. Okay, for this age group, 3 to 5 years old, 1 hour in a day. If it is over scattered, it is even better rather than continuous 1 hour. If you are giving them 15 minutes or 4 slots, they will also be happy. You will also be possibly happy because your four time slots in a day are getting occupied. But not more than 1 hour of screen time is advisable. Now, when it comes to self-stimulation or self-exploratory behavior, again, don't reprimand them. That's a way of understanding, that this is a pleasure-seeking behavior. So the need is for pleasure. So again, giving them alternatives to that is possibly a better way, and telling them that this could, cause injury to your private parts. This is why it is not okay, and that it is, it's socially acceptable. It's not a socially acceptable behavior. Instead of आप अगर सबके सामने करोगे, not again, you're teaching them good touch, some concepts of good touch, bad touch, stranger safety as well. That if you do this in front, others are likely to, touch you inappropriately, and that can be very unsafe for you. So helping them understand why it is inappropriate, and then giving them alternative. Okay, let's, giving them some alternative that will produce pleasure will be, ideal, and that will help them to not do it again.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. So I think last two questions are left. So before you address the one which all parents have asked on the use of mobile phones, there's one parent who is asking about how to deal with loneliness. The child is being lonely in this pandemic. So maybe it can be a problem of a single child also, but dealing with loneliness in this period.
Which is why social connection is, human beings are very social in nature, and social connection is absolutely important for our development, for our growth, for meeting our innate needs of feeling secure, feeling connected. So yes, and children also need that kind of connection. So even though if you have a single child and there is, still restrictions in terms of physical movement, as I said, you can arrange maybe a telephonic call with a video call. Better is a video call than an audio call. At least it allows you to see the person. So if their, grandparents are not living with you, and the child is connected to their grandparents very much, then make sure you do a small video call every single day, for that matter, with their grandparents, where the grandparents are, sharing a story over the video call, or talking to them, or asking them something and engaging them in that talk, or connecting with their, siblings, with their cousins, uncle, aunts, with friends. Sometimes, arranging for a Zoom call for them can also be a great way to help them feel that they're not alone. In fact, in my daughter's school, I see that in between the three periods, there is a break, right, of 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, literally the teacher allows them to, talk to each other, share their things. So, my daughter will show her favorite toy, and then the other child will show her favorite toy. They'll show their house around. They'll say, "Oh, okay, I'm eating this right now. I'm eating a carrot, or I'm eating an apple." So even when it comes to school time, not being very harsh with them, telling them to focus, focus, focus. It's very hard. Online school for preschoolers is especially very difficult. Let them just, it's only, I feel it's a great way to just feel connected, that there is something called a school. But other than that, don't just enforce anything. It's okay. Just take it easy. They will learn. There are other ways of teaching your child. There are lots of other ways. Household chores can be a great way to teach your child, and mathematics. or even language development for that matter. There are innumerable ways you can play games like I Spy with my little eye, something that begins with the letter A, or color. Which color do you want? And you just pick blue color in the house and blue color, and the child has to pick up 5 objects that are blue in the room. These are great fun ways of teaching children the concepts that are taught in preschoolers. And stories do wonders, and let the child sometimes imagine the end of the story. Let the child allow the child to make their own imaginary stories also. That is also very stimulating to their brains. So for loneliness, yes, you have to find ways in which they can connect and communicate with others to whom they share special bonds with.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And here we come to the end of the session. So I may have missed out on some questions, then I have written the email ID, which is q@simbischools.ac.in. So parents can send their questions on that email ID, and we will definitely get back to you. So though you have covered again and again, right now also you have mentioned that if alternatives are given, like telling a story, playing simple games with them, so I'm sure children will not spend so much time on the mobile phone. But there are innumerable questions and the concerns parents have put up that even after the school hours, the children are not willing to give the mobile away. And they are spending hours and hours on the mobile phone, so much so that they have stopped watching television. They are not watching television, they just want the mobile phone. And some parents are finding it difficult how to make them sit for the online class, which is of 45 minutes. So the concentration span of children is not that much. So these are the really, it's a concern that parents have put up.
Absolutely. It's a burning issue. And in fact, recently I read a research paper which showed that actually attention span of people have gone down because of the use of mobile. Not only of children, but even adults for that matter, the attention span is really gone down because the kind of stimulation that you get on mobiles is much more than any kind of stimulation you get from real-time situations. But it's important to help your brain calm down and to allow that sometimes to experience that boredom, because otherwise that constant stimulation can do more harm to us than boredom. So with mobile phones, I would say as parents, you firstly cut down on your own mobile use. Secondly, I mean, you are the parent. Remember that you are in charge still. When you say no mobile phone after school, it is no. Okay, so no compromise is possible on that, because it has got detrimental effects. It is extremely addictive, and which is why you're saying the child might throw a tantrum, the child will cry. Let them cry, let them throw a tantrum. They will settle down after that. And as I said, give alternatives for mobile phone, which, because if they get used to that kind of high level of stimulation, then believe me, other activities they will not find it that stimulating, because it's not meeting the need of instant gratification. That clicking a button on a mobile phone gives that much of a stimulation, whereas when I'm playing with blocks, it is a tedious effort, which where I have to arrange blocks, wait till I have an outcome of certain thing that I'm making. So at an early age itself, curb the mobile use. Uh, that is in your hand. As parents, I think utna to you can be firm. Believe in yourself. Believe in what you're doing is right for your child. Say it in a manner which is not aggressive though, and tell them very clearly that after school you will not be using your mobile. The mobile has to be handed over to me, and then just take it off from them. You'll have to take it off from them in order for them to be able to use it.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. And thank you so much. And that brings us to the end of the session. I hope we have taken all the questions possible. But still, if we have left some questions unanswered, then I request all parents to write your queries, questions on the email ID mentioned in the comment section, which is q@simbischools.ac.in. And so from all of us here from the Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing and Symbiosis School Central Directorate, We really thank all of you for joining us for this session and for your patient hearing. And thank you so much, Kirija ma'am, for guiding parents today. I'm sure they must have taken some very useful tips today, and they can always get back to us if they have more queries. So that brings us to the end of this session on tuning into the Tiny Talks. And thank you so much. Thank you very much, Praveen sir, for always supporting and helping us. So we always are thankful to our IT team. So, and thank you so much, Gargi Mitra madam, for being present for this session in spite of her busy schedule. So thank you all once again, and goodbye. Take care, all of you. Stay safe, stay happy until we meet